Ash coated the ruins like funeral powder. The old city's skeletal remains jutted from the barren earth, a monument to the world before. Anya Petrova stood at the edge of shattered window, 30 stories up, watching the distant Harmony Zone through cracked binoculars. Even from here, she could see the unnaturally straight lines, the perfect geometric patterns of the architect-controlled sectors. The spires of the synchronization hub rose in the center, gleaming white against the dusty horizon. "Beautiful, isn't it?" The deep voice of Jax rumbled behind her. The ex-soldier's massive frame filled the doorway of the abandoned apartment they'd claimed as an observation post. All that order, all that peace. His tone made the words sound like curses. Anya lowered the binoculars, her face expressionless. Beauty built on lobotomized minds isn't beauty, Jax. It's a painting of a sunset on the wall of a prison cell. She turned from the window, moving past him into the main room where the rest of their resistance cell waited. Lena, barely 20, tapped furiously at a salvage tablet, her slight frame hunched over it like she was protecting something precious. Kale, their medic, methodically restocked his field kit, his weathered hands moving with practiced efficiency despite the tremor that never quite left them. In the corner, Silas stood silently, his dark eyes watchful as always, the man of mystery even after 2 years fighting alongside them. "Tell me we have a way in," Anya said, addressing the group, but looking at Lena. The young hacker glanced up, pushing a strand of dirty blonde hair from her face. "Maybe. Their communication protocols shift every 6 hours, but there's a pattern." Her fingers danced across the screen. "I've identified a potential backdoor in their perimeter defense grid. It's risky, but everything we do is risky." Anya cut in. "What matters is whether it's possible." "It's possible," Lena confirmed, a hint of pride creeping into her voice. "But we'll have a 5-minute window, maximum. After that, the system will adapt." Kale looked up from his medical supplies, the deep lines in his face more pronounced in the dim light. "And once we're in, what then, Anya? We're talking about a synchronization hub. The security inside will be unlike anything we've faced." Anya's hand unconsciously moved to her left forearm, fingers tracing the outline of something beneath her jacket sleeve. "I know the risks, Kale. Better than any of you." Silas spoke for the first time, his voice soft but cutting. "She helped build them, after all." The room fell silent. Anya didn't flinch at the reminder of her past. Her eyes met Silas's without wavering. "Yes," she said simply, "and that's why I know we have to destroy this one." She moved to the center of the room, where a crude map was spread across an upturned crate. "The intel is solid. This isn't just another relay station. It's a new generation synchronization hub. If they bring it fully online, they'll be able to extend their mind control network 50 kilometers further into the wastes." "That's half our territory," Jax growled. "And thousands more people under their control," Lena added, her young face hardening. "Onion noindit. This is the facility's activation week. Security will be heightened, but their systems will still be in calibration mode. Vulnerable." She looked at each of them in turn. "We won't get another chance like this." "What's the plan?" Jax asked, always the soldier, ready for orders. Anya's fingers traced a path through the wastes and into the Harmony Zone on the map. "We move at night. Small group, fast and quiet. Lena creates our breach. We infiltrate, plant explosives at these 3 junction points, and get out before detonation." "Automatons?" Kale asked. "At least 24, Anya replied. "Standard patrols, predictable routes." "And sentinels?" Silas inquired, referring to the aerial drones that patrol the zones. 6, maybe 8. We'll need to time our movements between their sweeps." Nobody mentioned the overseers. Everyone knew they would be there, human bodies enhanced beyond recognition, their minds completely subsumed by architect programming. The most dangerous enemies they could face. "It's a suicide mission," Kale said finally, but his hands continued packing medical supplies. It wasn't a refusal. Anya's lips curved in a humorless smile. "Aren't they all?" The room fell quiet again as each person considered what lay ahead. They'd all lost something, everything, to the architects. Family, friends, freedom. Each carried their own reasons for fighting a war that seemed impossible to win. Get some rest, Anya said finally. We move in 6 hours. As the others dispersed to their tasks, Anya returned to the window, her reflection ghostly in the cracked glass. In the fading light, she rolled up her sleeve and stared at the lattice of faint silver lines embedded in her left forearm, barely visible against her skin. The nanomesh was inactive now, dormant since her escape. A remnant of her life as one of them. Her punishment, her weapon. Was it worth it? Jax asked, suddenly beside her again. Anya didn't pretend to misunderstand. Leaving, you mean? She thought of the years spent developing the very technology that now enslaved humanity, believing the lies about neural harmony and consensual augmentation. Yes, but not soon enough. Jax nodded, understanding in his eyes. None of us recognized the cage until the door slammed shut. I helped build the cage, Jax. His massive hand rested briefly on her shoulder. And now you're tearing it down. Get some sleep, Anya. Tomorrow we bring them pain. She watched him go, then turned back to the distant, gleaming spires. Pain wouldn't be enough. They needed to bring the architects something they hadn't felt in a very long time: fear. The eastern wastes were treacherous at night. The group moved single file through the rusted remains of a once vast transportation system, the metal carcasses of ancient vehicles forming a maze of twisted shadows. Toxic dust swirled in the occasional breeze, catching the faint moonlight like shimmering ghosts. Silas led the way, his movements silent and confident. He'd survive in the waste longer than any of them, somehow always knowing which paths were safe and which would lead to disaster. Behind him came Lena, her pack filled with the electronic equipment they'd need to breach the hub's security systems. Jax followed, heavily armed, constantly scanning their surroundings. Kale came next, medical kit strapped to his back, a pistol in his hand that he hoped not to use. Anya took the rear position, watching for pursuit. They'd traveled 3 hours when Silas suddenly raised his hand, freezing the group in place. In the distance, a mechanized hum disturbed the night silence. Patrol, he whispered. Not architect. Scavengers. Scavengers were human, technically, but barely recognized as such by the resistance. Bands of outcasts and opportunists who survived by stripping anything of value from the wastes and trading it to the architects in exchange for protection and supplies. Traitors, but dangerous ones. How many? Jax asked, his hand moving to the rifle slung across his back. Silas cocked his head, listening. Small group. 3 vehicles. We can't risk being spotted, Anya said. And we can't afford a delay. Lena's access window is too narrow. There's a drainage tunnel 50 meters ahead, Silas replied. We can use it to bypass them. The group followed him to a half-buried concrete opening. One by one, they slipped inside, the musty darkness swallowing them just as the mechanical whine of the scavengers' vehicles grew louder overhead. Inside the tunnel, they switched on low-light headlamps, revealing a corroded passageway stretching into darkness. The air was stale, thick with decades of accumulated debris and decay. How do you know about this place? Lena whispered to Silas as they cautiously advanced. The guide's face remained impassive in the dim light. I know all the veins of the wastes, the paths forgotten and abandoned. And yet somehow you always lead us exactly where we need to go, Anya commented from behind them. Convenient. Silas glanced back at her, his expression unreadable. You don't trust me. I don't trust coincidences, she replied evenly. And yet you trust your own judgment, despite your history. His voice held no accusation, merely observation. Before Anya could respond, Jax intervened. We're wasting time. The scavengers will be gone soon. Let's move. They continued in silence. The only sounds their footsteps and the occasional drip of unknown liquids from the ceiling. 15 minutes later, they emerged on the other side of a collapsed highway, the scavenger patrol nowhere in sight. As they resumed their journey, Kale fell in a step beside Anya. Your arm, he said quietly. I saw you massaging it earlier. Is it bothering you again? Anya instinctively flexed her left hand. Just phantom sensations. Nothing to worry about. The medic's eyes narrowed. The nanomesh is supposed to be dormant. If it's activating spontaneously, it's not. She cut him off. It's just responding to proximity. The closer we get to architect technology, the more it remembers. And what about you? Kale asked carefully. What do you remember? Anya's mind flashed to sterile laboratories, to enthusiastic colleagues speaking of neural integration and enhanced human potential, to the moment she discovered the truth behind Project Harmony, to the faces of the first test subjects, volunteers, they'd been told, as their personalities were systematically erased and rewritten. Everything, she answered coldly. That's the problem. They walked in silence for a while before Kale spoke again. Have you ever told the others exactly why you left? They know enough. Do they? His voice remained gentle but probing. You were more than just an engineer, weren't you? The mesh in your arm, it's prototype technology. Not something they'd waste on someone unimportant. Anya stopped walking, turning to face him fully. What are you asking, Kale? The older man met her gaze unflinchingly. I'm asking how high up you really were, and what you know that you haven't shared. For a moment, she considered deflection or anger. Instead, she found herself answering honestly. I was lead architect on the Overseer Initiative, she said, the words feeling like stones in her mouth. I designed the neural pathways that allow them to control nanobots within a localized field. I believed we were creating guardians, enhanced humans who could protect others in emergency situations. She swallowed hard. Then I discovered they were using political prisoners for conversion, wiping their minds completely, and not just for emergency response, for population control. The techniques I developed for temporary localized influence were being amplified for permanent wide-scale subjugation. Kale's expression softened with understanding. So you sabotaged your own work. Anya glanced down at her forearm. I tried. I built a backdoor into the system and injected myself with an experimental nanomesh that could potentially disrupt their control frequencies. But I was discovered before I could fully implement the countermeasures. She looked up again, her eyes haunted. I escaped with my life and partial schematics. Not enough to bring them down. Just enough to keep running. Just enough to fuel nightmares about what I helped create. Kale started to respond, but Silas's voice cut through the night. We're here. The group gathered at the edge of a ridge, looking down at the border of the Harmony Zone. The contrast with the wastes was stark and unnatural. Where the wastes were jagged, chaotic, and darkened by ash and decay, the zone was geometric, ordered, and bathed in soft artificial light. The transition wasn't gradual. A precisely defined line separated devastation from seeming paradise. And at the center of it all, gleaming like a beacon, stood the synchronization hub. Beautiful and terrible, Lena whispered. Anya's expression hardened as she studied the structure she'd helped design in concept years ago. Remember, no matter what you see in there, no matter how peaceful it seems, none of it is real. None of it is chosen. One by one, they looked at her, determination in their eyes. Let's bring back choice, Jack said. With that, they began their descent toward the border, each step taking them closer to the heart of the enemy, and for Anya, closer to her past. The perimeter of the Harmony Zone was deceptively minimal, a thin barrier of sensors rather than a physical wall. The architects had never needed imposing fortifications. Their control over residents' minds ensured no one tried to leave, and the barren waste deterred most outsiders from attempting entry. The group crouched behind the remnants of a pre-war commercial structure, watching the smooth pedestrian paths and meticulously maintained greenery just 50 meters away. Everything was illuminated by soft, ambient lighting embedded in the walkways. Occasionally, a resident would pass by, their movements fluid but oddly uniform, faces placid and emotionless. Reminds me of sleepwalkers, Jax muttered. In a sense, they are, Anya replied. Their basic physical functions are their own, but higher thoughts are guided or suppressed. Lena had her equipment spread before her, fingers dancing across multiple interfaces simultaneously. The sensor grid cycles in 30 seconds, she whispered. When I give the signal, we'll have exactly 20 seconds to cross the perimeter before the next sweep. They waited in tense silence as Lena counted down. At her nod, they moved swiftly across the open ground, the bizarre sensation of stepping from chaos into order palpable as they crossed the invisible line into the harmony zone. 15 seconds, Lena hissed as they pressed themselves against a curved wall. 10, 5, we're clear. Inside the zone, they moved differently, measured, calm, mimicking the residents' unhurried pace. Their weathered clothing stood out against the pristine attire of the zone dwellers. But as long as they maintained the right demeanor, the passive residents wouldn't register them as anomalies. A Sentinel drone passed overhead, its scanning beam sweeping the path ahead. The group paused beneath an architectural overhang, waiting for it to complete its patrol route. 7 minutes to the maintenance access point, Silas murmured, his eyes tracking the drone's movement. Stay in formation. If we're separated, proceed to the rendezvous point independently. They continued forward, weaving through the immaculate streets. The deeper they penetrated into the zone, the more residents they encountered, men, women, and children moving through. Their programmed routines with empty smiles and vacant eyes. A young girl passed directly in front of Anya, no more than 10 years old, her small hand held by a woman who was presumably her mother. The child's gaze briefly met Anya's, and for an instant, something flickered behind those eyes. Confusion, perhaps, or the faintest question. Then it was gone, replaced by the same vacant contentment. Cale noticed Anya's reaction. They're still in there, he said softly. Somewhere deep. Parts of them, Anya agreed grimly. But less with each passing day. The synchronization process is designed to gradually overwrite individuality, reinforcing itself with each cycle. They approached a service junction disguised as a decorative structure. Lena knelt beside it, attaching her interface to a concealed panel. 3 minutes, she said tensely, her young face illuminated by the glow of her screen. The hub's systems are more advanced than our intel suggested. Adaptive algorithms. They're learning as I probe. Can you get us in? Jax asked, his large frame positioned to shield her from casual observation. Yes, but... Lena hesitated, eyes darting across streams of data. I'm detecting unusual activity patterns. Either they're upgrading security protocols or they know we're coming, Silas finished, his expression darkening. Impossible, Jax growled. No one outside our cell knew about this mission. Anya's attention shifted to her arm, where beneath her sleeve, the dormant nanomesh had begun to warm against her skin. Unless they detected me, she said quietly. The others turned to her, questioning. The mesh, she explained. It's architect technology, usually dormant, but this close to a synchronization hub. She rolled up her sleeve, revealing the faint silver web that had begun to pulse with subtle light beneath her skin. It's responding to their systems. You're a beacon, Silas said, accusation evident in his tone. No, anya counter. If they could track me through it, they'd have found our base long ago. But inside the zone, this close to the hub. She didn't finish the thought. We abort, Cale stated firmly. If there's even a chance they can detect us. We don't abort. Anya cut him off. This is our only window. The hub goes online in 36 hours. After that, it's too late. She turned to Lena. Can you get us in or not? The young hacker hesitated only briefly. Yes, but our window just got a lot smaller. Then we move faster, Anya decided. Jax, Silas, change of plans. Instead of 3 simultaneous charges, we go for the central core. 1 targeted strike. Higher risk, Jax noted. Higher reward, Anya countered. The core is where synchronization patterns are generated. Destroy that, and the entire hub is useless. A soft tone from Lena's equipment drew their attention. We're in, she announced. Maintenance access unlocked. But we've got company, Automaton Patrol, North Quadrant, moving this way. Time to disappear, Anya said. They slipped through the now unlocked service door into a narrow utility corridor. Unlike the aesthetic perfection of the zone's exterior, these maintenance passages were purely functional. Conduits and cables lining sterile white walls. Lena sealed the door behind them as Silas consulted a schematic he'd memorized. Central core is 16 levels up, middle of the structure. Elevators will be monitored, Jax pointed out. We climb, Anya replied simply, moving toward an access ladder built into the wall. One by one, they ascended through the heart of the synchronization hub, the technological marvel that would soon become a prison for thousands more minds, unless they succeeded. As they climbed, Anya felt the nanomesh in her arm growing warmer, more active. Each level they passed brought them closer to the hub's core, and closer to confronting the full horror of what she had helped create. The central core of the synchronization hub was a massive spherical chamber, 30 meters in diameter. The walls were lined with neural interface arrays, gleaming panels that pulsed with soft blue light. At the center hung a crystalline structure, suspended in a containment field, its facets refracting the light into hypnotic patterns. The synchronization matrix, Anya whispered as they observed from a maintenance gantry above the main floor. It's larger than I expected. More advanced. Is that the target? Jax asked, already reaching for the explosives in his pack. Anya nodded slowly, her eyes never leaving the crystal. Yes, but it won't be simple. She pointed to the ring of workstations surrounding the matrix, where white uniformed technicians moved with mechanical precision. Those are not ordinary staff. They're partially synchronized themselves, directly linked to the hub's security systems. So if they detect us, Lena began, the entire facility will know instantly, Anya confirmed. Kale studied the chamber layout. I count 8 technicians for automatons and at least 2 security checkpoints. Getting to the center undetected seems impossible. We don't need to be undetected, Anya said, a plan forming. We just need 3 minutes with a matrix. She rolled up her sleeve fully, revealing the nano mesh that now glowed with a subtle silver light. My mesh is responding to the synchronization field. I can use that. If I can get close enough to the matrix, I might be able to temporarily disrupt its broadcast pattern. Silas questioned. It's theoretical, Anya admitted, but possible. The mesh in my arm was designed to interface with exactly this kind of technology. Instead of placing explosives, we upload a cognitive virus, a code fragment designed to create interference in the neural control patterns. You never mentioned this capacity before, Silas noted, suspicion evident. Because I wasn't certain it would work until I saw the matrix, Anya replied. This is new generation technology, but it still follows the basic architecture I helped design. Jax frowned. What exactly would this cognitive virus do? Create brief windows of awareness in the controlled population, Anya explained. Moments where the architect's influence weakens. Not freedom, but cracks in the wall. Enough to plant seeds of doubt, of resistance. That sounds like a better long-term strategy than just blowing it up, Lena observed. It's also more dangerous, Anya countered. I'll need to physically interface with a matrix. Direct contact. The implication hung in the air. Such proximity to the core would mean almost certain capture, even if the upload succeeded. Kale broke the silence. There has to be another way. There isn't, Anya stated firmly. Not with our resources, not in our time frame. So what's the plan? Jax asked, already accepting the inevitable. He'd known Anya long enough to recognize when her mind was set. I need a distraction, she said. Something big enough to draw attention away from the core, but controlled enough not to trigger a full lockdown before I can complete the upload. The secondary power junction, Silas suggested. 2 levels down. Disrupt it, and emergency protocols will divert resources there while maintaining core functions. Anya no indeed. Jax and Silas handle that. Lena, I need you to access a terminal and freeze the security feeds for the central chamber, just long enough for me to reach the matrix. What about me? Kale asked. Anya's expression softened slightly. Be ready to get everyone out, especially if I don't make it back. That's not a plan, the medic objected. No, she agreed. It's a necessity. She checked the time. Lena's breach will be discovered in 17 minutes. We move now. The group split up, each heading to their assigned positions. Anya and Lena made their way to a monitoring station adjacent to the core chamber. As Lena worked to compromise the security feeds, Anya prepared herself mentally for what was to come. "Why didn't you tell us about this before?" Lena asked quietly, her fingers never pausing in their work. About what the mesh could really do? Anya considered the young woman beside her. In many ways, Lena reminded her of herself at that age. Brilliant, idealistic, not yet hardened by the full weight of her choices. "Because I wasn't certain," Anya replied honestly. "The mesh was experimental, implanted during my final days with the architects. I designed it as a countermeasure, but never had the chance to test it. And now you're betting all our lives on it," Lena observed without judgment. "Yes." Lena nodded, understanding the burden of such decisions. "For what it's worth, I think you're right. A moment of awakening for thousands might achieve more than destroying one facility." She glanced up from her work. "People need to remember what they've lost before they can fight to get it back." A soft tone from Lena's equipment signaled success. Security feeds looped. "You have 3 minutes before the system autocorrects." Anya placed a hand on the young hacker's shoulder. "If I don't return, I'll get the others out," Lena promised. "And I'll make sure people know what happened here." With a final nod, Anya slipped from their hiding place and entered the core chamber. Moving with calm purpose, she adopted the measured pace of the facility workers, keeping her eyes focused ahead as if on legitimate business. The nanomesh in her arm pulsed more intensely with each step toward the central matrix, responding to the concentrated synchronization field. She was halfway to the center when the first explosion rocked the facility. Lights flickered as Jack's and Silas's distraction took effect. Perfect timing. The technicians around the matrix paused momentarily, their synchronization with the system briefly disrupted by the power fluctuation. Anya seized the opportunity, covering the remaining distance to the matrix as alarms began to sound. The crystalline structure hung before her, its facets reflecting her determined face back at her 1,000 times. Without hesitation, she thrust her mesh-embedded arm into the containment field surrounding the crystal. Pain shot through her body as the field reacted to the foreign intrusion, but the mesh responded as designed, creating a localized disruption that allowed her to maintain contact. Through gritted teeth, Anya began the upload process, mentally activating sequences she had programmed years ago. The nanomesh glowed brightly now, pulsing in rhythm with the matrix as data transferred between them. Behind her, she heard shouts as the technicians recovered from their momentary confusion. An automaton was moving toward her, its mechanical joints whirring as it accelerated. 60%, she muttered to herself, willing the process to move faster. The virus was complex, designed to embed itself deep in the synchronization protocols where it would be difficult to detect and remove. The automaton reached her, mechanical arms extending to seize her. Anya ducked beneath its grasp, maintaining contact with the matrix as she maneuvered around the crystal. The machine followed, its programming focused solely on removing the threat to the system. 80%, she gasped as pain lanced through her arm. The mesh was never designed to channel this much energy for this long. She could feel it heating, the nanobots straining against their molecular bonds. The facility's lights stabilized as the secondary systems came back online. The distraction had bought her time, but not enough. From a corner of her eye, she saw facility doors sliding open, revealing figures that moved with the unnatural fluidity of overseers. One in particular advanced ahead of the others, tall, imposing, face emotionless but eyes burning with cold intelligence. The head overseer, 95%, Anya whispered as the figure approached. Just a few more seconds. The head overseer stopped several meters away, studying her with clinical detachment. "Asset Petrova," he stated, voice unnaturally modulated. "Designation, traitor. Function, terminated." Anya recognized something in those inhuman eyes, a shadow of someone she had once known. "Mikhail," she whispered, momentarily shocked. The overseer showed no recognition of a name. Instead, he raised his arm, revealing an integrated energy weapon where his right hand should have been. Upload complete, Anya's mesh signaled in her mind. As she withdrew her arm from the containment field, the overseer fired. A beam of concentrated energy struck her left arm, just below the shoulder with surgical precision. There was a moment of intense heat, then nothing. Anya staggered backward, staring in shock at the cauterized stump where her arm had been. The severed limb lay on the floor, the nano-mesh still glowing, still connected to the matrix by tendrils of energy. Time seemed to slow. The chamber fell silent in her perception, the alarms fading to a distant wail. Anya looked from her missing arm to the overseer, who was already adjusting his weapon for a kill shot. In that suspended moment, she made her choice. With a primal scream that echoed through the chamber, Anya lunged forward, grabbing her severed arm from the floor. The nanomesh flared brilliantly at her touch, responding to her even in separation. Before the overseer could fire again, she swung the detached limb like a club, connecting solidly with his head. The unexpected, barbaric attack caught the overseer off guard. He staggered backward, systems momentarily confused by the primitive violence that his advanced programming hadn't anticipated. More importantly, the nanomesh in the severed arm, still active and now directly contacting the overseer's neural interface, created a feedback loop in his control systems. He froze in place, his integrated technologies conflicting with one another. Anya didn't wait to see the outcome. Clutching her severed arm against her body, she turned and ran toward the exit where Kale now appeared, horror evident on his face as he took in the scene. The others, she gasped as he caught her. Waiting at the extraction point, he replied, already applying a pressure bandage to her stump as they moved. The virus. Uploaded, she confirmed, her voice weakening as shock set in. Did it activate? As if in answer, the lights throughout the facility fluctuated. Around them, several facility workers stopped in their tracks, expressions shifting from placid emptiness to momentary confusion. One woman looked directly at Anya, real recognition flickering in her eyes before the control reasserted itself. "It's working," Kale confirmed, supporting Anya as they hurried through corridors now filling with disoriented personnel and malfunctioning automatons. "But we need to move. The effect seems temporary." They made their way down emergency stairwells and through maintenance passages, Anya growing weaker with each step despite Kale's medical intervention. The severed arm she still clutched had stopped glowing, the nanomesh finally depleted. Somehow, they reached the extraction point, a service exit where Jax, Silas, and Lena waited with barely concealed anxiety. "Architect's hell," Jax swore when he saw Anya's condition. Without hesitation, he lifted her into his arms. "Let's move." As they fled through the now chaotic Harmony Zone, evidence of the virus's effect was everywhere. Residents stood in confused clusters, some crying, others arguing, all experiencing their first moments of true consciousness in years. Sentinel drones flew erratic patterns, their guidance systems compromised. Automatons stood frozen, caught between conflicting directives. "It won't last," Anya mumbled, drifting in and out of consciousness. "The system will adapt, but the memory might remain." They reached the perimeter just as facility recovery protocols began to reassert control. Behind them, the confused residents were already returning to their docile states, the brief window of awareness closing. But not completely, not for everyone. As darkness claimed her, Anya's last conscious thought was of the woman who had looked at her with real recognition, a spark that might survive, might spread, might one day ignite. 6 months passed before Anya could effectively use the prosthetic arm Kale and Lena had constructed for her. It was crude by architect standards, functional rather than elegant, mechanical rather than neural. But it was hers, free from external control or hidden programming. She stood now on the roof of their new base, farther from the Harmony Zones, but with a better vantage point for communications. The Resistance had grown in the months since their mission at the Synchronization Hub. What had once been isolated cells was evolving into a network, disparate groups finding one another, sharing resources and information. Lena approached, carrying a data tablet. The young woman had changed, her former nervous energy channeled into focused determination. You should see this, she said, handing Anya the device. On the screen was grainy footage, surveillance images smuggled out of the Harmony Zone by newfound allies within. It showed a wall where someone had painted a stylized image, a severed arm raised in defiance. Below it, blocky letters spelled out, "Remember." Similar images appeared in sequence, the same symbol appearing in different zones, on different surfaces, always with the same message. "It's spreading," Lena said, unable to keep the excitement from her voice. The virus created more than just temporary awareness. It created a memory that couldn't be fully erased, and that memory became a symbol. Anya studied the images, her expression unreadable. A symbol isn't enough. "It's more than that," Silas said, joining them on the roof. The former guide had finally revealed his connections to a larger resistance network, becoming their liaison to other cells. "Your action at the hub has become something of a legend." The woman who struck back with her own severed arm. People in the zones whisper about it. Those moments of awareness. They remembered what they saw through the facility's monitors. They remembered you. Anya shook her head slightly. "Legends don't win wars." "No," agreed Jax as he too joined the group. "But they inspire the people who do." The big man's face bore new scars from subsequent missions, but his resolve remained unshaken. "We got fresh intel. The architects are alarmed. They've delayed the activation of 3 other synchronization hubs while they analyze what happened. They're afraid," Kale added, joining them last. The medic looked older, the lines in his face deeper, but there was a new energy in his movements. For the first time in decades, they're actually afraid. Anya turned back to the horizon, where the distant spires of the Harmony Zones cut against the sky. "Fear is a beginning, but we need more than symbols and delays." "We have more," Silas said. "Much more." He gestured for them to follow him back inside. In their command center, a repurposed bunker beneath a collapsed commercial center, a dozen resistance fighters worked at salvaged equipment. Some faces Anya recognized. Others were new recruits, drawn to their cause by whispered stories and the growing realization that the perfect harmony of zones was a carefully constructed prison. Silas led them to a central table where a holographic display showed a map of the regional harmony zones. "Your virus did more than just create temporary awareness," he explained. "It created pathways through the architect's security protocols that we've been exploiting for months. Small incursions, data extraction, recruitment." "Recruitment." Onyel questioned. Lena stepped forward eagerly. "We've established a network inside the zones. People who experience full awareness during the disruption and manage to maintain it, or at least remember it. They're working with us now, providing intel, sabotaging systems where possible. And the best part," Jax added with a rare smile, "is that the architects don't know who is compromised. They can't tell which of their perfect citizens are actually working against them." Anya studied the map skeptically. "It's still not enough. The architects control too much territory, too many minds. A few saboteurs won't change that. Which is why we need this," Silas said, manipulating the holographic display to show a new location, a remote facility deep in architect territory. "This is their primary synchronization nexus, the heart of their entire network." Anya's eyes widened slightly as she recognized the facility. "That's Central Command, the place where all synchronization patterns originate before being distributed to regional hubs." "Exactly," Silas confirmed. "And thanks to your virus and our new allies inside, we now have its complete schematics." "You're talking about a direct assault on their headquarters," Anya said, disbelief evident in her voice. "That's insanity. The security there would be unlike anything we've faced." "Not an assault," Kale corrected. "An infiltration, targeted and precise." Lena brought up more detailed schematics. "The central nexus has a vulnerability, a maintenance access point that's only used during full system recalibrations." "Which they're doing now," Jax added, "because of the disruption your virus caused. They're checking and upgrading every component of their network." Anya stared at the plans, her mind racing through probabilities and scenarios. "Even if we could get inside, what then?" The central nexus is too large to destroy with the explosives we have, and another temporary disruption won't achieve much more than we already have. We don't want to destroy it, Silas said quietly. We want to reprogram it. The room fell silent as the implication sank in. That's, Anya began. Possible, Lena finished for her. With your knowledge of their systems and my coding skills, we could potentially rewrite the fundamental synchronization protocols. To do what exactly? Anya asked. To give choice back, Kale said simply. Not freedom all at once. That would be catastrophic, millions of people suddenly awakening with no preparation. But a gradual restoration of autonomy, sector by sector, mind by mind. Anya paced around the table, her prosthetic arm whirring softly with each movement. The scale of what you're proposing. It would require direct access to the core processing array. Physical contact, like you did at the hub, Jax noted. Only much more complex, Anya countered, and much more dangerous. The central nexus would be guarded by elite overseers, possibly dozens of them. Including this one, Silas said, bringing up an image that made Anya stop cold. It showed the head overseer she had encountered at the hub, the one she had struck with her severed arm, the one who might once have been Mikhail. He survived, she whispered. More than survived, Silas explained. He's been promoted, placed in charge of Central Nexus security, specifically because he encountered you. They believe his experience makes him uniquely qualified to anticipate your methods. Anya stared at the image, memories flooding back, not just to their confrontation at the hub, but from before. Mikhail Koryev, once her colleague, her friend, perhaps almost something more. Before the architects had taken him for special assignment. Before he had disappeared, only to return as something no longer fully human. He recognized me, she said quietly. Just for a moment during the confrontation, there was something in his eyes. That another reason we need you for this mission, Kale said gently. If there's any humanity left in him, any connection to his former self, you might be able to reach it. Anya shook her head. You're asking me to bet the entire operation on the faint hope that an overseer might remember being human? We're asking you to lead this mission because you're the only one who can, Jax stated bluntly. Your knowledge of the systems, your experience with the nanomesh technology, no one else has that. My nanomesh is gone, Anya reminded them, flexing her prosthetic arm. It was in my real arm. Lena and Kale exchanged a look. Not all of it, the medic said carefully. Before Anya could question this, Lena brought up a new image, microscopic scans of what appear to be neural tissue. We've been monitoring your medical readings since the hub, Kale explained. The nanomesh in your arm wasn't isolated to that limb. It had begun integrating with your nervous system before it was severed. There are still nanobots in your body, dormant but present, primarily clustered around your spine and brainstem. Anya stared at the scans in shock. That's not possible. I would have known. Not necessarily, Kale continued. The integration was subtle, designed to be undetectable. But our theory is that when you interfaced with the hub's matrix, it activated secondary protocols in the mesh, protocols that began a deeper integration with your nervous system. What you're describing sounds like what the architects do to create overseers, Anya said, her voice hardening. Functionally similar, yes, Kale admitted, but fundamentally different. The architect technology overwrites neural pathways, replaces autonomy with external control. What we're seeing in you is more like symbiosis. The nanobots respond to your conscious control, not the other way around. Anya paced away from the table, trying to process this revelation. The idea that she had architect technology integrated with her nervous system was horrifying, yet also explained certain sensations she'd experienced since the hub mission. Moments of heightened perception, occasional flashes of data like impressions when near architect technology. Assuming this is true, she said finally, turning back to the group. What does it mean for the mission? It means you could potentially interface directly with the central nexus, Lena explained, excitement evident in her voice. Not just upload a virus, but establish a two-way connection, give commands, redirect processes, fundamentally alter the system at its core. Or it means I could be instantly compromised the moment I come in contact with their systems, Anya countered. If there are nanobots integrated with my nervous system, what's to prevent the architects from simply taking control of them? And me? This, Silas said, producing a small device from his pocket. It resembled a neural spike, the kind used in emergency medical situations. Insurance. If you're compromised, this sends a localized EMP through your system. It would deactivate the nano mesh instantly, and probably cause severe neurological damage in the process, Kale added grimly. But it's a last resort, a fail-safe. Anya took the device, studying it. So those are my options? Potentially become a puppet of the architects, or fry my own brain? Or succeed, Jack said firmly. Rewrite their system from the inside out. Begin the real liberation. Anya looked around at the faces watching her. Jax's unwavering certainty, Kale's cautious concern, Lena's brilliant optimism, Silas's calculating intensity. Beyond them, the newer resistance members, people drawn to their cause by the hope that freedom was possible. And somewhere, in the Harmony Zones, thousands more who had experienced brief moments of awareness, who had painted severed arms on walls with the word "remember" beneath them. She thought of Mikhail, of the person he had been and the monster he had become, of all the others like him, transformed against their will into extensions of the architect's control. How soon? She asked finally. 2 weeks, Silas replied. The recalibration process creates a 72-hour window where the maintenance access will be vulnerable. We'll need to be in position before then. On your 90 slowly. I'll need everything you have on the central nexus. Schematics, security protocols, personnel rotations. And I want to run full diagnostics on these nanobots supposedly in my nervous system. Already compiled, Lena said, handing over a data crystal. We've been preparing for months, just waiting for me to agree. Anya finished for her. She took the crystal, then looked at each of them in turn. I'm not promising success. I'm not even promising I'll go through with this if the risks prove too extreme. But I'll consider it. That's all I can offer right now. That's all we ask, Kale said, relief evident in his voice. As the others dispersed to continue preparations, Anya remained at the holographic display, studying the image of the central nexus and of the overseer who had once been Mikhail. You recognized me, she whispered to the image. Just for a moment. Is there enough of you left in there to help us? Or will I have to destroy whatever remains? The image, of course, provided no answer. But as she stared at it, Anya felt something stir within her, a subtle warmth along her spine, a brief flicker of perception beyond normal human senses. The nanomesh responding to her emotions, to her focus. For the first time since losing her arm, she felt a strange sense of completion. The mesh had never been just in her arm. It had always been part of her broader nervous system. The severed limb had been a conduit, not the source. And perhaps, she realized with a mixture of dread and determination, that was why her desperate act at the hub had been so effective. Not just the primitive shock of the attack, but the mesh itself, still active, still connected to her consciousness even in separation, had created the disruption that planted seeds of freedom throughout the system. One arm, one desperate act, had started the Resistance's first real victory. Now, they were asking her to risk everything for something far greater. Onion. Jax's voice broke through her thoughts. He stood in the doorway, concern evident on his scarred face. You all right? She turned from the display, a new resolve settling over her. I will be. Start the preparations. Full briefing at 0600. He nodded, understanding the decision she had made. For what it's worth, I think Mikhail would want you to try. The real Mikhail, I mean. The real Mikhail is gone. Anya replied, her voice hard. What matters is stopping the architect from taking anyone else. As Jax left, Anya returned her gaze to the holographic display, to the image of the central nexus rising like a gleaming spire amidst the perfect geometric patterns of the main Harmony Zone. The heart of the system that had enslaved humanity. The nanomesh stirred again within her, responding to her focused intent. It was architect technology, yes, but now it was hers. Her weapon. Her responsibility. In 2 weeks, she would return to the heart of what she had helped create. Not to destroy it, but to transform it, to exploit the backdoors and vulnerabilities she had designed years ago. To give humanity a chance to remember who they had been, who they could be again. She flexed her prosthetic arm, the mechanical joints whirring softly. Not as sophisticated as her original arm, not as seamlessly integrated, but entirely her own, free from external control. Sometimes, she reflected, liberation required sacrifice. Sometimes it required picking up what had been taken from you and using it as a weapon against those who had taken it. 2 weeks to prepare. 2 weeks to decide if she was willing to risk not just her life, but her very autonomy, the thing she had fought so hard to preserve. The choice was hers. For now, outside the bunker, night fell over the wastes. In the distance, the lights of the Harmony zones glowed with artificial perfection. But here and there, barely visible even with enhanced perception, were disruptions in the pattern. Small acts of defiance. Symbols of a severed arm, raised not in surrender, but in rebellion. Remember, she would, and soon, perhaps, everyone else would too. The liberation of humanity would not come from a single heroic act or a sudden revolution. It would come gradually, one mind at a time, as people remembered who they had been, as they reclaimed the autonomy that had been stolen from them, as they chose, for themselves, the future they wanted to create. And it would begin with a choice that only Anya could make. A return to the heart of the system she had helped build, armed with nothing but her knowledge, her determination, and the strange symbiosis of woman and machine that she had become. Not to destroy, but to transform. Not to end, but to begin anew. The arm they had taken from her had become a symbol of defiance. Now, what remained, the mesh integrated with her very being, would become something more, a key to unlock the prison of perfect harmony. In the quiet of the command center, Anya made her decision. It had always been inevitable. From a moment she first discovered the truth about the architect's plans, from a moment she had injected herself with experimental nanomesh as both protection and penance. Remember, she whispered to herself, a promise and a prayer. And in the darkness of the ruined world, hope flickered like the faint silver light of nanobots awakening to their host's resolve.